Hello everyone, welcome back to my video. Today I want to talk about blue zones, because this is becoming more and more popular. In fact, there was actually a documentary released on Netflix by a man called Dan Buettner talking about these blue zones. Well, he was the one who coined the term blue zones. But these are basically areas where they've been highlighted for exceptional longevity, where there's a lot of centenarians in a small space. I've actually visited 3 of these blue zones many years ago, and one of the things I concluded on that I believe is more core to why these people live such a long time is the fact that they all grow their own food. So I've always had an interest in health and longevity, and I've always been interested to see how I can optimise my life to live a long, healthy, happy life. And this started, I suppose, 5 years ago when I decided to do a bit of a travelling trip with my brothers. We took a car from the UK and drove right into the heart of Sardinia, where a blue zone was located. We found a town that was meant to have an exceptionally high number of centenarians. And it's a funny story because we literally drove from the UK to this place, and when we got there, everything was closed. If you know anything about Sardinia and Italy, or Mediterranean in general, you know about 2 PM of the day, most days, they have a siesta. So we drove all the way and we got to the town when everyone was sleeping, and they probably thought, these stupid English people walking through the town, wanted them to learn about longevity, but without even realising they're breaking one of the main rules. One thing that stood out to me was the fact that they all had a local garden, or their own back gardens, and they worked together as a community to grow food. And in some cases they actually even shared what they grew, as in like they allocated what foods to grow to share among the community together. But one story that stuck out to me more than most was when I visited Costa Rica, the Nicoya Peninsula, and we met a local there who is the great grandson of a centenarian, a man who had lived to 110 years old, completely self-sufficient off the land. And we were trying to figure out like how much truth is he talking here, and how healthy was this 110-year-old when he died, because that was the age he died. And he said right up until the age of 110 he was still working in the garden and was mentally sharp. I think, how is this possible for someone who's living completely off the land in a very, you could say, poverty-stricken area where there's not developed at all, there's no major hospitals, major supermarkets, conveniences, yet he's beating the rest of the world in longevity, where in most places around the world now, in Western countries, we spend millions, billions on healthcare, yet we can't get anywhere close to these people. And this 110-year-old wasn't even an outlier, because there is so many centenarians in that part of the world, it's like a grouping. And it's largely attributed to the environment they're in and what they're actually doing in that place. And like I said, one of the things that stuck out to me was the fact that they're all growing their own food. And in a way, it's not really their choice. They are kind of forced to grow their own food because there's no supermarkets around. Like, we can just go, well, we're in the UK now, we can just go to a supermarket and buy whatever you want without having to grow or process your own food, which saves you a lot of time and effort. So you're thinking, well, why would I even bother doing that? But when you look at these people and you think, I want a piece of that, I want a bit of that in my life, a bit of health and longevity like they have, and vitality right up until the age of 100 plus years old. And like I said, growing food is really a core element to that. So why is growing food so important, and why do I advocate that everyone should start their own garden and start consuming more food out of their own garden? So the first point might not come as a surprise, but obviously the nutrition. When you grow your own food, there is so much more nutrition in the plants you eat in your own garden than anything you can buy in supermarkets. And that's because it's been grown in your own controlled environment, where you know you've got perfectly healthy soil that is complete and biodiverse, which as a result passes into the plants, and you have a more nutritionally complete food. But with that said, it's not just the soil, it's the fact that it's picked fresh and it's picked ripe. And it sounds like a bit of an obvious point, picking food ripe and picking it fresh, but when we go to the supermarket, we don't realise we're buying food off the shelves that is often picked well unripe, so it hasn't even developed its final elements of the food to make it a complete food, and it's usually been on the shelf for at least a week. as soon as the plant is detached from the life force, which is the soil, and everything around it in the ecosystem, it is starting to degrade the moment it's being picked. So the faster you can get from garden to plate, the better your food's going to be, the better quality nutrition you're going to get, and healthier you're going to be. But next, let's talk about the activity. The actual idea of moving in the garden. Being in the garden growing food is an outdoors activity where you are forced to maintain and manage the garden, even though there's not that much work to it. The way I grow food in this garden here, it's quite hands-off. It's a very gradual, slow movement throughout the day. I'm not sedentary, sat down at a desk. Like, again, when I relate to the blue zones, like in Costa Rica or in Sardinia, they're on the feet all day. They're all walking around, doing light exercise. Basically, they're moving slowly. They're not going to the gym, not doing strenuous runs. In fact, if you did a run in that area, they'd probably think you robbed something. That's how uncommon it is to do a run in these areas, because why else would you do exercise? They're programmed to think that, well, not programmed, they think that exercise is unnecessary because that is part of their life. Not strenuous exercise, just gradual, slow movements. And this is really underappreciated by so many people. We think we can compensate all the sitting down we do at a desk, work on a screen, with an hour in the gym or an hour run, when unfortunately it's not usually the case. It's the prolonged period where we're sat down is causing the damage, and if we can change that and have more of a lifestyle that's, slow movements, working outside in the garden, doing whatever it's doing, whatever you're doing, you are going to set yourself up for a longer, healthier life. So obviously this gradual movement is really important, and this is why I think a lot of the centenarians are living such a long, healthy life, because they're not just sat down in a chair just waiting to die. They're actually still doing things. So being outdoors, and more specifically being in nature, is one of these elements that we don't consider when we grow food, because it is just such a byproduct of being out in the garden. And I can honestly say this has a massive impact on me personally. Whenever I come out to the garden, it instantly resets any stresses, worries, problems I had in my mind, mental problems, spiraling thoughts, whatever it is, and sets it to what is real, and I just get in tune with the pace of nature. You can't fake this, you can't get it from another environment other than the real thing outside of nature, and it's one of those things that you're forced to do as well, because as soon as you're in the garden, you can't ignore what is happening around you. I honestly think the more time I spend in the garden, the more this actually improves, and it's not just like a quick fix, even though you could say it is. It really does have like a prolonged effect on my life. It changes me as a person. I definitely have noticed since I've started really getting in touch with nature and growing my own food, I think I've become more of a patient person. You might think, I don't know that, but I do think I've become more patient. I've definitely become more present and mindful of certain situations, and I think I also understand. I'm getting very angry now, that plane flying over. But it's alright. See, I'm in nature. See, I can control my emotions. No, but seriously, it does have a massive impact. And this does improve all the other areas of my life. It's not just like one of these isolated cases. If I want to live a healthy, long, happy life, you have to have a good mental state. And being in nature does really improve your mental state. So if you're at an office desk now, and you're in a rut of working on a computer screen and you're just stressed with work, I can almost guarantee if you spent time outside, outdoors, doing an activity like growing food for some part of your day, it would have a profound impact on your mental state, even when you're sat at the desk working, because it doesn't just isolate to the garden, it spreads to other areas of your life. So my final point of why I think growing food is one of the best things we can do for our longevity, and it actually ties very closely with all the blue zones, it's a common factor among them all, is the fact that it gives you purpose. The Okinawans in Japan even give this a special name, this idea of having purpose. And if you can find purpose from growing food, which I definitely have found purpose from growing food, and I know a lot of these blue zones also have the same purpose, because they see it as they're providing food for their family. They're providing nutrition that can't be bought anywhere else from their own gardens and feeding the family and the community. That is a reason for them to get up in the morning and do what they do. When you have that reason to get up and to live, and you feel like you're needed in that family, then it definitely sets you up for a long life. It's not a very complex point, it's quite simple, but it's very, very important. In a way, what I'm doing in this channel as well, sharing the message and teaching people how to grow food and showing how you can do it in a very easy way, is also another way of I've got a lot of purpose from growing food. So if you're like me and you want to live to 130 years old, I know I'm aiming very high, but honestly I think it's possible. I think it's possible. And you don't already grow food, then you know what the next step is to take, because I talked about in this video why I think growing food is one of the best things we can do for our health and longevity. Because I honestly do believe if we took one thing from all the blue zones and applied it to the population, I think it would be backyard gardens and growing food. I think that would have a profound impact on the longevity of the population. Because I mean, what is it now? I think UK average life expectancy is something like 75, 80 years old. Rubbish. And bear in mind, a lot of them people, well, unfortunately, are not living vibrantly up until that age as well. Whereas you see these centenarians living vibrantly, with good vitality, no medication, working in the garden right up until the age of 100, 110, which is pretty amazing. So I want that in my life. And if you do too, you need to get growing your own food. If you don't know where to start, I do actually have a free guide on everything you need to know on how to create food forests, just like this one. So you can check that out on my website, growingofficial.com. But other than that, if you enjoyed the video, make sure you like and subscribe for more videos like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next one.